What's up guys, this video will be a part 2 to my Lumina video. I said a few things that were incorrect at the time, that being what buffs and debuffs work with this Lumina buff. So as we mentioned, it is a 35% buff to you and the person you heal for 10 seconds. And as mentioned, it works with all the debuffs including Melting Point, Tractor Cannon, and then also the Void Hunter melee. But it does not work with any of the other buffs in the game as far as I've tested. This includes all of the Warlock ones including Will of Radiance, Empowering Rift, and Empowering Melee. And as you see, all those buffs just override Blessing of the Sky. Like the second you step in one of those rifts or well, or you get the Power Melee, it just rips that buff right off your screen. And the same thing happens with Weapons of Light on Banner Shield Titan. So it does not appear to stack with any of the buffs in the game, and it stacks with all the debuffs. And when I first heard that it did not work with Well, I kind of thought, well, that makes a little bit of sense. They're both 35% buffs, and Bungie didn't want us to, be stacking another 35% buff on top of everything else we already had. Because if you think about it, with all the buffs multiplying, another 35% buff is actually like huge. Once everything's multiplied out, it actually results in a much higher percent increase. So it kind of made sense why that would not stack. But it not stacking with Empowering Rift or Empowering Melee or Banner Shield or pretty much all the other buffs in the game doesn't really make too much sense to me, because this Lumina buff pretty much replaces Well. They're both 35% buff, they both heal you. So I can understand them not overlapping. Let's say you're in a situation without a Well of Radiance Warlock and you're using Lumina instead as that 35% buff. You could not stack that with, things like Banner Shield, but yet you can stack Well of Radiance with Banner Shield. So I don't understand why those wouldn't stack. Not allowing it to stack with everything else besides Well pretty much makes zero sense to me, and I don't understand the logic if it's on purpose. And I'm hoping it's a bug, because I can truly understand why they wouldn't want to stack with Well, and if that's on purpose, I can understand that. But the other stuff, I'm not quite sure about that one. So everything I said in that video is pretty much still true. This gun is still extremely strong in a lot of situations. It's just not that must-have weapon for boss damage. Like I said, this and Will are both 35% buffs, and both kind of do similar things. But if it comes down to it, are you going to pick Will or one person shooting Lumina over and over again? I'm sticking with Will. So for that boss scenario, this gun isn't quite as good as I thought it would be, and pretty much is useless because of the fact Will's in the game. So for that reason, I'm hoping that it not stacking with all these buffs is a glitch, is a bug. I can understand if they don't want to stack 35% with 35% Well, maybe make it not stack as high of a buff, somehow alter it in some way where it's not going to result in some ridiculous, crazy exponential buff. But limiting it to not buff with anything hurts it a lot in PvE and its long-term use. Like I said, are you going to use this over a Well? Probably not, probably never. But with all that being said, it's still an extremely strong weapon for ad clear and all the things before a boss fight. Because in this game, you're not constantly fighting bosses. That's only like 10% of the game. So for ad clear, things like that, like mini bosses and whatnot, things that you're not going to be dropping your Well, your super that takes 3 to 4 minutes to get, all those situations where you're saving that for the final boss, the Lumina is extremely strong in those scenarios, and having that 35% buff and healing whenever you want is still very, very strong. And the main reason I hope it's a bug, or if it is intentional, I hope they fix it or change it, is because weapons like this do a lot for the game. For the most part, when you pick which exotic you're using in the game in PvE, it's very straightforward. Which weapon can clear the most ads the most efficiently, which weapon does the most damage, and that's pretty much all you're basing your choice off of. But weapons like the Lumina and Tractor Cannon completely change the reason why you're picking your exotic. They do things that the other ones can't, and it changes your role in the team, which is great for diversifying the way you play the game and also all of your loadouts and things like that. So I'm rooting for this weapon to be, a staple of PvE in the future of Destiny. So overall, to sum up a few things, pretty much everything I said about this gun in yesterday's video is still very much so true. It's just not that must-have weapon for boss fights necessarily. I'm hoping this is a bug, or at least everything besides Well is a bug. I don't see why it shouldn't stack with Banner Shield and things like that. Like the way I see it, it's pretty much Lumina is replacing Well, so everything that works with Well should work with Lumina, and that's not true. And that's what confuses me and makes me believe it's a bug. Anyways, I just want to apologize for getting that wrong in yesterday's video. I made that video extremely quick. By the time I had the weapon and pretty much had the entire video recorded, that's when other people started getting the weapon. So pretty much everything in that video was mine and my own fire team's testing, not any outside testing. So there's a lot of things to cover in a very short amount of time. So we obviously missed a very important aspect of this weapon. So once again, I apologize for that. Anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.